Tae-min stared at the bottom of his empty glass, watching the last drops of synthetic whiskey slide down the sides. The cantina smelled like old metal and desperation, which seemed fitting. 3 days. That's all the time he had left before station security threw him out of his quarters and into the cold void of space. Well, not literally into space, but close enough. The lower decks of New Ganymede Station weren't much better than vacuum. He raised his hand to order another drink, but the bartender deliberately looked away. Tae-min lowered his hand slowly. No point in making a scene. Nobody on this station wanted to serve him anymore. Nobody wanted to talk to him. Nobody wanted to even look at him. Murderer, someone whispered from a nearby table. Tae-min's jaw tightened, but he didn't turn around. He'd heard it 1,000 times in the past. 6 months. Murderer. Saboteur. Killer. 17 people had died when the mining vessel Prosperity failed during a routine operation near Europa. 17 good people who had families waiting for them. And everyone believed Tae-min had caused it. He hadn't. But the evidence said otherwise. The evidence that Park Dae-young, the station administrator, had carefully manufactured to hide his own crimes. Dae-young had cut corners on the Prosperity's maintenance, pocketing the money meant for crucial repairs. When the ship's systems failed, he needed someone to blame. Tae-min, the lead engineer who had filed multiple safety complaints, became the perfect target. The door to the cantina slid open with a hiss. Tae-min looked up out of habit and immediately regretted it. Officer Choi Hyun-sik walked in, his security uniform crisp and clean. His eyes found Tae-min instantly, and a smile spread across his face. Not a friendly smile. The kind of smile a predator gives before it strikes. "Well, well," Hyun-sik said, walking over to Tae-min's table. "Still here? I thought you'd had the decency to leave on your own by now." "I paid for my drink," Tae-min said quietly. "I'm allowed to be here. Your drink?" Hyun-sik laughed. He grabbed Tae-min's glass and held it up to the light. "This empty glass? You've been nursing this for 2 hours. That's loitering, not drinking." The bartender came over quickly, wringing his hands. "Officer, I was just about to ask him to leave. He makes the other customers uncomfortable." Tae-min stood up slowly, not wanting trouble. "I'm going." "Too late for that," Hyun-sik said. He grabbed Tae-min's arm hard enough to bruise. "You're disturbing the peace. I'm placing you under detention for 24 hours. 24 hours in a holding cell meant missing his appointment at the labor office tomorrow. His last chance to find any kind of work before his credits ran out completely. Hyun-sik knew that. Everyone knew that. This was just another way to push him further down into the dirt. On what grounds? Tae-min asked, even though he knew it was pointless. "I just told you." Disturbing the peace. Hyun-sik started pulling him toward the door. He was sitting quietly, a voice said. Everyone in the cantina turned toward the speaker. She stood near the entrance, tall and slender, her skin showing faint patterns of blue light beneath the surface. An Azurian. Tae-min had seen a few of them on the station before, but they usually kept to themselves in the upper research levels. They rarely came down to places like this. Hyun-sik's expression shifted from confidence to confusion. "This doesn't concern you, alien. Stay out of human business." The Azurian woman tilted her head slightly, studying Hyun-sik like he was a specimen under a microscope. "I was observing. The human you are detaining committed no violation." He sat in silence for 143 minutes. He spoke only when addressed. "Your accusation lacks factual basis. I don't care what you think you saw. What I saw is irrelevant. What occurred is fact." The woman took a step closer. "You are abusing your authority. This is also fact." Hyun-sik's face turned red. His hand moved to the stunner on his belt. You want to join him in detention? I can arrange that. You lack jurisdiction over Azurian citizens, she said calmly. Attempting to detain me would create a diplomatic incident. Your superiors would not appreciate the complications. For a long moment, Hyansik just stared at her. Then he shoved Tae Min away hard enough that he stumbled. Fine, but I'm watching you, he said, pointing at Tae Min. One more complaint, one more problem, and you're gone. Permanently. He stormed out of the cantina, leaving a heavy silence behind. The other customers slowly returned to their drinks and conversations, carefully not looking at Tae Min or the Azurian woman. Tae Min straightened his jacket, his arm throbbing where Hyansik had grabbed him. Thank you, he said to the woman. You didn't have to do that. Correct. I did not have to. She walked over to his table and sat down in the chair across from him, moving with a precise grace that seemed almost mechanical. Yet I chose to. The officer's behavior was illogical and inefficient. Such actions should be corrected when possible. Tae Min sat down slowly, unsure what to make of this. Most people on this station think I deserve treatment like that. Most people on this station have formed conclusions without examining primary evidence, she said. This is a common human failing. You are the engineer who is accused of sabotaging the mining vessel, correct? That's me. Kang Tae Min, professional pariah. He tried to smile, but it came out bitter. I am Vela, xenobiologist, research level 7. She folded her hands on the table. I have reviewed the official reports of the incident. The evidence against you is circumstantial and contradictory. The probability of your actual guilt is less than 30%. Tae Min blinked. You looked into my case? I find human behavior patterns interesting. Your case was referenced in station records. I was reviewing for unrelated research. The inconsistencies were obvious. She paused, her bioluminescent patterns flickering slightly. You require employment. Your financial status indicates imminent resource depletion. That's one way to put it, Tae Min said. Yeah, I need work, but nobody will hire me. I've tried everywhere. Even the recycling plants won't take me on. Human employers are rejecting you based on social stigma, not capability assessment, Vela said. This is inefficient. I require someone with expertise in human engineering systems. Specifically, someone who can repair and modify obsolete scanning equipment. Your credentials indicate you possess the necessary skills. Tae Min's heart started beating faster. You're offering me a job? I am proposing a mutually beneficial arrangement. You provide technical services. I provide compensation and a work environment free from harassment. Her expression didn't change, but something in her eyes seemed almost curious. Your alleged crimes are irrelevant to your technical competency. I do not require you to be innocent. I require you to be skilled. What kind of research are you doing? Tae Min asked carefully. Desperation made people stupid, and he'd been burned before by trusting too easily. Xenobiological analysis of human adaptation patterns in non-terrestrial environments. The equipment I need repaired was designed by human engineers 30 years ago. Current technicians lack familiarity with the older systems. She stood up smoothly. You may inspect the facility and equipment before deciding. I require an answer within 48 hours. After that point, I will seek alternative solutions. She turned to leave, then paused. The officer who harassed you will likely continue his behavior. My facility is in the abandoned industrial ring, Section K7. Security personnel rarely patrol that area. You would experience less interference there. Before Tae Min could respond, she walked out of the cantina, leaving him sitting alone at his table. The bartender was staring at him now, looking confused and slightly worried. Some of the other customers were whispering Tae-Min pulled up his datapad and searched for section K-7 in the station directory. It existed, marked as inactive, but not sealed. The industrial ring had been shut down 5 years ago when the new automated manufacturing sector came online. Most people avoided it because the environmental controls were unpredictable and the corridors were poorly lit out. It sounded perfect. For the first time in 6 months, Tae Min felt something other than despair. It wasn't hope, not exactly. More like possibility. A chance. He finished looking at the directory information and stood up. He had 48 hours to check out Vela's facility and make a decision. As he walked toward the door, someone at the bar muttered, "Working for an alien now. Figures." Tae Min kept walking. Let them talk. He'd learned that words couldn't hurt him anymore. Only the silence could. Only being completely alone in a station full of people. If this Azurian woman was offering him a way out of that silence, he'd be a fool not to at least investigate. The door slid shut behind him, and he headed toward the transit station that would take him to the industrial ring. Behind him, the cantina returned to its normal rhythm of quiet desperation and cheaper whiskey. Nobody noticed that Tae Min was walking a little straighter than when he'd arrived. Nobody except Vela, who watched from a monitoring station 3 levels up. Her bioluminescent patterns pulsing in one another, Azurian might have recognized as satisfaction. The industrial ring smelled like rust and forgotten promises. Tae Min walked through corridors that hadn't seen regular foot traffic in years, his footsteps echoing off metal walls. Emergency lighting flickered overhead, casting strange shadows that made him jump more than once. He checked his datapad again. Section K-7 should be just ahead. He found the entrance sealed with a newer lock, clearly installed recently. As he approached, the door slid open smoothly. Someone had been maintaining this place, even if the rest of the ring was falling apart. Tae Min stepped inside and stopped. The facility was incredible. Clean, well-lit, and filled with equipment that made his engineer's heart race. He saw scanning arrays, biological sensors, data processing units that must have cost a fortune. Everything was organized with precise efficiency, labeled and cataloged. In the center of the main room stood a large piece of machinery he recognized immediately. A quantum resonance scanner. Old model, maybe 30 years out of date, but still more sophisticated than 90% of the equipment currently in use. These things could map biological systems down to the molecular level. They'd been discontinued because they were too expensive to maintain and required constant calibration by someone who actually understood the underlying technology. "You came," Vela said from behind him. Tae-Min turned. She stood in a doorway he hadn't noticed, wearing a simple work suit that somehow looked elegant on her frame. Her bioluminescent patterns were dim in the bright lighting, but he could still see them shifting slowly beneath her skin. "This is impressive," Tae Min said, gesturing at the equipment. "How did you get authorization for all this?" "I purchased it privately. Azurian research grants are substantial when one is studying extinction patterns." She walked over to the scanner, running her hand along its surface. "This unit is malfunctioning. 3 of its primary sensor arrays are misaligned, and the quantum stabilizers are degrading. I need it operational within 2 weeks. Extinction patterns?" Tae Min asked, the words catching his attention. "My research focuses on species adaptation in hostile environments, understanding why some species thrive while others fail." She looked at him directly. "Does this disturb you?" "Should it?" Many humans become uncomfortable when reminded of their mortality. Species-level mortality, especially. She tilted her head. "You do not seem disturbed?" Tae Min walked around the scanner, examining the access panels. "Right now, I'm more interested in whether I can fix this thing. Everything else is just philosophy." He found the main control interface and powered it up. Error codes immediately flooded the screen. Oh yeah, this is definitely broken. But it's fixable. I'll need parts. I have a supply account. Provide me with a list. Vela pulled up a holographic display. Your compensation will be 500 credits per day, plus meals and access to living quarters adjacent to this facility. The quarters are small but functional. 500 credits per day. Tae Min almost laughed. That was more than he'd made as a senior engineer on the station. That's generous. It is appropriate for specialized labor. Vela's patterns flickered. I do not understand human customs regarding compensation negotiation. If this amount is insufficient, state your requirements. No, it's more than fair. Tae Min looked around the facility again. Why me, though? There are other engineers on this station. Better ones who don't have my reputation. Better is subjective. I require someone with specific knowledge of obsolete human systems. Your employment history shows extensive work with equipment from this era. She paused. Additionally, I require someone who will not ask unnecessary questions about my research or report my activities to station authorities. You think I'm desperate enough to ignore red flags? Tae Min said quietly. I think you are intelligent enough to recognize opportunity and pragmatic enough to accept it despite uncertainty. Vela met his eyes. I am offering employment, not friendship. I have no intention of betraying you or causing you harm. My research is legitimate, if unconventional. Beyond that, your suspicions or trust are irrelevant to our arrangement. It should have sounded cold. It should have set off every warning bell in Tae Min's head. Instead, he found himself appreciating the brutal honesty. No false promises. No pretending to care. Just a straightforward transaction. When do I start? He asked, immediately, if you are willing. Tae Min pulled off his jacket and rolled up his sleeves. Show me to the parts storage. Let's see what we're working with. The next 10 days fell into a comfortable rhythm. Tae Min worked on the scanner, losing himself in the familiar challenge of coaxing old technology back to life. Vela spent most of her time analyzing data from other instruments, occasionally asking him questions about human engineering philosophy that seemed odd but harmless. She kept her word about everything. The quarters were small but clean, far nicer than his old place. The meals were simple but adequate, usually delivered by automated systems. And nobody bothered him. No station security, no former colleagues crossing the corridor to avoid him, no whispered insults. It was peaceful. Tae Min hadn't realized how much he'd missed peace until he had it again. On the 11th day, Hyun-Sik found him. Tae-Min was elbow-deep in the scanner's quantum stabilizer assembly when he heard angry voices from the entrance. He looked up to see Hyun-Sik pushing past Vela, 2 other security officers behind him. There you are, Hyun-Sik said, pointing at Tae Min. Step away from that equipment. You're under arrest for theft of station property. What? Tae Min straightened up, confusion mixing with old fear. I haven't stolen anything. That scanner. It was reported missing from decommissioned inventory 3 weeks ago. Hyun-Sik smiled. Seems like you're branching out from sabotage to simple theft. That equipment is my private property, Vela said, her voice sharp. I have purchased documentation and import permits. You are making false accusations. Show me the documentation then. Hyun-Sik said. La pulled up a holographic display. Here, purchase receipt from Titan Industrial Salvage, dated 4 months ago. Import permit issued by New Ganymede Customs, filed and approved. All legal and verified. Hyun-Sik barely glanced at it. These could be forged. They are not forged. They can be verified through official channels in under 5 minutes. Vela stepped between Hyun-Sik and Tae Min. You are harassing my employee without cause. Leave my facility immediately. Your employee? Hide-and-Seek laughed. This murderer works for you? You know what he did? I know what he was accused of. I also know the evidence was insufficient for criminal prosecution. He was dismissed from employment, not convicted of a crime. Vela's bioluminescent patterns flared brighter. Your continued harassment suggests personal motivation rather than professional duty. This behavior is inappropriate. I don't take orders from aliens, Hide-and-Seek said, moving toward Te-Min.Ve. La moved faster. She didn't touch him, but she positioned herself directly in his path, close enough that he'd have to physically push her aside to reach Te-Min. You will leave now, or I will file a formal complaint with both station administration and the Azurian diplomatic office. Your career will not survive the scrutiny. The two security officers behind Hide-and-Seek looked uncomfortable. One of them cleared his throat. Sir, if the documentation is legitimate, fine, Hide-and-Seek snapped. But I'll be watching. Both of you. He turned and stormed out, the other officers following quickly. After they left, Te-Min realized he'd been holding his breath. He let it out slowly. Thank you. Again. His behavior is becoming predictable, Vela said, already returning to her workstation. He perceives you as a target he can abuse without consequence. My intervention frustrates this pattern. Why do you keep doing it? Te-Min asked. Defending me, I mean. You said this was just a business arrangement. Vela was quiet for a moment. Her patterns pulsed slowly. Azurians do not typically involve themselves in human social conflicts. We consider such matters inefficient and emotionally wasteful. She turned to look at him. I find that I am less Azurian than I believed. What does that mean? It means ... She paused, as if choosing her words carefully. I observe patterns. In my research, in behaviors, in systems. You are a pattern I find compelling. You were condemned by your society without proper evidence. You continue functioning despite this condemnation. You maintain your skills and ethics when you could have abandoned both. This suggests resilience I wish to understand. I'm a research subject, Te-Min said, not sure if he should be offended or amused. You are a colleague who deserves fair treatment, Vela corrected. The fact that I also find you interesting does not diminish that. She pulled up another display. I have been investigating your case. The evidence against you was manufactured. The real cause of the Prosperity's failure was systematic maintenance negligence by Park Dae-Jung. Te-Min's heart stopped. You can prove that? I accessed sealed corporate files using my research credentials. The documentation is clear. She transferred files to his datapad. This should be sufficient to clear your name if presented to proper authorities. Te-Min stared at the data, hardly believing what he was seeing. Maintenance logs that had been altered. Budget reports showing funds that should have gone to repairs being redirected. Communication records of Dae-Jung ignoring safety warnings. Everything he'd known was true, but couldn't prove. Why? He asked quietly. Why would you do this for me? Because the truth matters. Because injustice is inefficient and causes unnecessary suffering. Vela's patterns brightened. Because you helped me repair my equipment, and reciprocity is logical. Te-Min looked at the files again, then at the scanner he'd been working on. Something didn't add up. Vela, this scanner. It's not designed for studying adaptation patterns. It's built for analyzing extinction probability. Very specifically extinction probability. Yes, she said simply. What are you really researching? Vela was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was softer than he'd ever heard it. I am researching how long humanity has left to live, and whether anything can be done to change that answer. The weight of those words filled the room like gravity suddenly increasing. Te-Min sat down slowly, still holding the data pad with evidence of his innocence, and looked at this alien woman who had given him everything he needed to reclaim his life. "Tell me," he said, and she did. Vela pulled up a holographic display that filled half the room. Tae-min saw star charts, mathematical models, and simulation results that made his stomach sink. 73 years ago, humans developed faster than light travel, Vela began. The technology revolutionized your species' expansion across the galaxy. Within 50 years, you established colonies on 217 worlds. An unprecedented achievement. "I know the history," Tae-min said quietly. "Then you know your FTL drives work by creating controlled tiers in spacetime. Brief openings that allow ships to move between points faster than light should permit." Vela expanded the display. "What you do not know is that these tiers do not fully close." Tae-min leaned forward. "What? They heal, but imperfectly. Like scar tissue in biological systems. Each jump leaves a microscopic weakness in the fabric of space." She brought up a new model showing thousands of jump points across human space. Individually, these weaknesses are harmless. Collectively, they create a pattern. The model shifted, showing the weaknesses connecting like cracks in glass. Tae-min watched as the simulation played forward, the cracks spreading and merging until entire sections of space shattered into fragments. "Void cascades," Vela said. "When the accumulated damage reaches critical density, space-time begins to fragment. The cascades isolate regions from each other, making FTL travel impossible. Ships caught between fragments are lost. Colonies become isolated. Communication fails." She paused. "Civilizations collapse. How long?" Tae-min asked, his voice barely a whisper. "At current rates of FTL usage, the cascades will begin in 47 years. Within 50 years, human space will be fragmented into approximately 8,000 isolated regions. Most colonies will die. The survival rate for your species is estimated at 12% of current population." Tae-min stood up and walked to the display, reaching out to touch the simulation. "This can't be right. Someone would have noticed. Our scientists, our engineers." "Your scientists lack the instruments to detect the damage," Vela said. "The effects operate at quantum scales beyond human sensor capability. My people discovered the pattern 300 years ago. Since then, we have observed it 17 times across different species. 16 of those species are now extinct. 17 times. Tae-min turned to look at her. "You're saying this has happened before? Other species died this way?" "Yes. Species develop FTL travel, expand rapidly, damage spacetime, and collapse before they understand the problem." Vela's patterns dimmed. "The Galactic Council knows. They have known for centuries. Their policy is non-intervention." "Non-intervention?" Tae-min felt anger rising in his chest. "They're just watching humanity die? They believe intervention causes worse outcomes. They have attempted to help 3 of the 17 species. In all 3 cases, the interventions failed and accelerated the collapse." Vela pulled up historical data. The Council established the Prime Observation Directive. Species facing extinction patterns must be studied, but not aided. To interfere is to risk making things worse. That's insane. That is policy based on painful experience. Vela closed the historical files. "I was sent here as an observer. My assignment was to document human extinction patterns for the archives, to study how your species responds to the crisis when it becomes aware of it. When we become aware." Tae-min's voice rose. "You mean they're waiting for us to figure out we're dying so they can watch how we react?" "Yes." Vela met his eyes. "I am violating the Prime Observation Directive by telling you this. I am violating it further by attempting to find a solution instead of simply documenting your decline." Tae-min sat down again, his mind racing. "Why? Why would you risk that?" Because I have spent 2 years studying humans. I have observed your creativity, your adaptability, your refusal to accept impossible situations. Her patterns flared brighter. The Council's models assume species behavior follows logical, predictable patterns. But humans are not logical. You are chaotic in ways that make statistical prediction difficult. She pulled up new data, models that Tamine had helped generate by repairing her equipment. I have been running alternative scenarios, testing whether human unpredictability might allow for outcomes the Council has not considered. The results are ... interesting. Interesting how? There is a theoretical solution. Human FTL drives create cascades because they operate at specific harmonic frequencies. If those frequencies could be modified with quantum dampeners, the damage could be reduced by 97%. Vela brought up schematics. Azurian technology includes such dampeners. They are standard components in our ships. Taemin studied the schematics, his engineering mind already analyzing the integration challenges. This could work. If we could retrofit all human ships with these dampeners, humanity would survive. Your expansion would continue sustainably. The cascades would stabilize. Vela's voice was steady, but Taemin heard something underneath it. Hope, maybe. But implementation requires resources humanity does not possess. The dampeners need harmonic crystals found only in Azurian territory. And the Galactic Council will not allow the transfer. Because of their directive. Yes. Taemin looked at the evidence Vela had given him earlier, still displayed on his datapad. Evidence that could clear his name. And now this, evidence that his entire species was doomed. The irony wasn't lost on him. We need to tell people, he said. Earth Fleet, the Colonial Administration, someone in authority. They need to know. Agreed. I have compiled all relevant data. We should transmit it to. An explosion shook the facility. Alarms blared. Taemin grabbed the edge of his workstation as the lights flickered. What was that? Security breach, Vela said, pulling up monitoring feeds. Multiple hostiles entering through the main access point. They are using military-grade weapons. On the screens, Taemin saw armed figures in tactical gear moving through the corridors. Leading them was a face he recognized immediately. Park Dae-jung. How did he find us? Taemin asked. My facility access requests were logged in station systems. If he has been monitoring for unusual activity related to you, Vela was already moving, gathering data storage devices. He knows. About my research, about the evidence against him. He is here to eliminate both problems. Another explosion, closer this time. The door to the facility groaned, but held. That entrance will not last long, Vela said. We need to leave, now. Taemin grabbed his datapad and followed her to a back corridor he hadn't noticed before. Emergency lighting barely illuminated the path. Behind them, he heard the main door give way with a screech of metal. This way, Vela said, moving with surprising speed through the darkness. Her bioluminescent patterns provided enough light to navigate by. There is a maintenance shaft 300 meters ahead. It connects to the primary station infrastructure. They ran. Taemin heard shouting behind them, footsteps echoing. A weapon discharged, the energy bolt scorching the wall beside his head. He ducked and kept running. Vela reached the maintenance shaft first and wrenched the access panel open with strength that surprised him. Azurians were stronger than they looked. She gestured him inside. Go, I will follow. Taemin climbed into the shaft, his hands finding familiar maintenance ladder rungs. He'd worked in shafts like this for years. Behind him, he heard more weapons fire. He looked back to see Vela ducking into the shaft, but not before one of the bolts caught her shoulder. She made no sound, just pulled herself into the shaft and sealed the access panel. In the dim light, Tae-min saw the burn on her shoulder, her bioluminescent patterns flickering erratically around the wound. "You're hurt." "Functional," she said shortly. "Keep moving. They will cut through that panel in minutes." They climbed. The shaft connected to other passages, a maze of maintenance tunnels that honeycombed the station. Tae-min navigated by instinct and old memory, leading them away from the industrial ring and toward the central levels. Behind them, he heard the access panel being forced open. Shouts echoed up the shaft. They kept climbing. "My brother," Tae-min said between breaths. "Wu Jin. He's in Earth Fleet, stationed at Luna Command. If we can get this data to him, transmitting from the station is too risky. Di-young will have monitoring protocols." Vela pulled herself up another level despite her injury. "We need to reach a secure communication node. There's one in the diplomatic quarter, reserved for official channels. If we can access it, I have diplomatic credentials. We can access it." Vela stopped suddenly, holding up a hand. Below them, Tae-min heard multiple people entering the shaft. "At least 6, maybe more. They're not giving up," he whispered. "Tae-young cannot afford to. If this information reaches proper authorities, he loses everything. His position, his freedom, his life." Vela looked at him, her eyes reflecting the faint emergency lighting. "He will kill us if he can." They kept moving, faster now. Tae-min's arms burned from climbing. His lungs ached. Beside him, Vela's patterns were growing dimmer. The injury was affecting her more than she admitted. They reached a junction point, where the shaft connected to a primary corridor. Vela opened the access panel carefully, checking for threats. Clear. The diplomatic quarter is 2 levels up. Section B12. They climbed out into the corridor just as weapon fire erupted from the shaft below. An energy bolt hit the ceiling above them, showering them with sparks. They ran. The corridor was empty, most personnel avoiding this section during off hours. Their footsteps echoed loud enough to wake the dead. Behind them, Tae-min heard their pursuers climbing out of the shaft. Vela stumbled. Tae-min caught her arm, keeping her upright. Almost there. 2 more corridors. They turned a corner and found themselves facing Hyun-sik. He stood blocking their path, stunner drawn. "End of the line. Both of you." Vela straightened, despite her injury. "Officer Choi, you are working with Dae-young. I should have predicted this. He pays better than the station does." Hyun-sik raised his stunner. "Nothing personal. Just business." Tae-min's mind raced. They were trapped. Dae-young's people behind them, Hyun-sik ahead. No weapons, no way out. He looked at Vela, saw her patterns flickering, and made a decision. "Send it," he told her. "Send everything to Wu Jin. Right now. We are not at the secure node. They'll track it, I know. But maybe it'll get through before they can stop it. Maybe that's enough." Tae-min stepped forward, putting himself between Vela and Hyun-sik's stunner. "Do it." Vela hesitated only a second, then her hands moved across her portable interface. Data streaming away into the station's network, broadcasting toward Luna Command with every encryption protocol she had. Hyun-sik fired. The stun bolt hit Tae-min square in the chest. The world went white with pain, and Black Dot Tae-min woke up in a cell. Not a station holding cell. Something larger, cleaner, with walls that seemed to shift with subtle patterns of light. His chest ached where the stunner had hit him, but otherwise he seemed uninjured. He sat up slowly, trying to remember what happened after the darkness. "You are awake," Vela's voice said. He turned to see her in an adjacent cell, separated by a transparent barrier. The burn on her shoulder had been treated, though her patterns were still dim. "Where are we?" "Galactic Council Detention Facility." It arrived at the station 17 hours after we transmitted the data. Vela moved closer to the barrier. Your transmission was successful. The information reached your brother before De-Jung could intercept it. He forwarded it to Earthfleet Command. That's good. Tae-Min stood, testing his legs. So why are we in prison? I have been charged with violating the Prime Observation Directive. You have been detained as a material witness. She paused. De-Jung and Hyansik are also in custody. The evidence against them was conclusive. You have been formally cleared of all charges related to the Prosperity incident. Tae-Min should have felt relief, vindication. Instead, he just felt tired. I've been cleared, but I'm still a cell. For now, the Council is deciding my fate. Yours will follow from that decision. What will they do to you? Vela's patterns flickered. The penalty for violating the Prime Observation Directive is death. Execution by neural dissolution, scheduled for 3 days from now, unless I renounce my findings and agree to return to Azuria under permanent surveillance. The casual way she said it made the words even worse. They're going to kill you for trying to save humanity? They are going to kill me for interfering with a protected extinction event. From their perspective, I have compromised centuries of careful policy. She sat down against the barrier. I knew the consequences when I made my choice. There has to be something we can do. Appeal, legal defense, something. I have declined legal representation. My actions were deliberate violations. There is no defense to offer. Vela looked at him through the barrier. I do not regret my choice, even knowing the outcome. Before Tae-Min could respond, the cell entrance opened. 2 guards in Council enforcement uniforms entered, followed by a human in Earthfleet colors. Tae-Min recognized him immediately. Wu Jin, he breathed. His brother looked older than Tae-Min remembered. More tired, more serious. But when their eyes met, Wu Jin's expression softened slightly. Tae-Min, it's good to see you alive. You got the data. All of it. The Void Cascade research, the evidence against De-Jung, everything. Wu Jin glanced at the guards. Can we have a moment? The guards stepped outside, but remained visible through the doorway. Wu Jin moved closer to Tae-Min, lowering his voice. Earthfleet is in chaos. Half the Admiralty wants to deny the Cascade data. The other half wants to start retrofitting ships immediately. But we don't have the resources. We don't have the crystals we need. Vela said the same thing. She saved your life, you know. After you were stunned, she fought off Hyansik and 3 of De-Jung's people long enough for station security to arrive. She could have run, could have saved herself. She stayed to protect you. Wu Jin looked toward Vela's cell. The Council wants to execute her for that. Can you stop them? I'm trying. Admiral Kim Sora is using your data to push for emergency protocols. We've already modified 3 experimental vessels with improvised dampeners. They work. The Cascade formation rate dropped by 94% in our test flights. Wu Jin ran a hand through his hair. But the Council is watching. They're deciding whether to classify this as humanity solving its own problem or as Forbidden's intervention. It's our problem to solve. Vela just told us it existed. That's what Sora is arguing. But the Council doesn't see it that way. They're stuck in their own rules, their own fear of making things worse. Wu Jin pulled up a holographic display. There's going to be a hearing. Tomorrow, the Council will decide Vela's fate and whether humanity gets to keep the Cascade information. What can I do? Testify. Tell them what happened, why Vela's research matters. It might not change anything, but... Wu Jin met his eyes. She gave up everything to help us. We owe her the attempt. The hearing took place in a chamber that seemed too large for the number of people in it. Council representatives from 7 different species sat in a semicircle, their faces ranging from humanoid to barely comprehensible. Tae-min stood at a podium, very aware that his words might be the last chance to save Vela's life. He told them everything. The research, the discovery, the evidence. He explained how Vela had helped him when no human would, how she had risked everything to give humanity a chance to survive. He spoke for nearly an hour, answering questions, defending her actions. When he finished, the council deliberated in silence for what felt like forever. Finally, the lead representative spoke. The evidence is clear. Vela of Azuria deliberately violated the Prime Observation Directive. However, we acknowledge that the human species has shown unusual adaptive capability in response to the cascade information. Tae-min held his breath. The council rules as follows. Vela will be released from council custody under human jurisdiction. The charges against her will be suspended pending observation of humanity's response to the cascade crisis. If humanity successfully implements a solution without further Azurian intervention, the charges will be dismissed. If humanity fails or requires additional prohibited assistance, Vela will be returned to council custody for sentence execution. It wasn't freedom, but it wasn't death. Tae-min looked over at Vela, who stood calmly beside her own podium. Her patterns showed nothing, but he thought he saw relief in her eyes. However, the representative continued, humanity must solve this crisis using only resources currently available to your species. The harmonic crystals required for widespread dampener implementation exist only in Azurian territory. The Council prohibits their transfer to humanity. Admiral Sora stood from the human delegation. Those crystals are essential. Without them, we can only retrofit a fraction of our fleet. Millions will die. The Council is aware. However, providing the crystals would constitute direct intervention beyond the scope of permissible assistance. Our decision is final. The chamber erupted in argument. Tae-min barely heard it. They'd saved Vela, but condemned humanity to a slower death. Some victory. 3 hours later, Tae-min found Vela in the detention center's common area. She was staring out a viewport at the stars beyond, her patterns dim and slow. "We're trapped," he said, sitting beside her. "We know how to survive, but we can't get what we need to actually do it." Correct. Vela didn't look away from the stars. "I have been analyzing the problem. There is one potential solution, but it requires actions I am uncertain you will accept." "What solution?" Vela turned to face him, her expression more serious than he'd ever seen. "Azurian law prohibits resource transfer to non-family entities. The crystals cannot be given to humanity as a species. However, they can be transferred to individual Azurians for personal use." "I don't understand." "If you were Azurian family, legally recognized under our laws, you would have access to family mining rights. Those rights include harmonic crystal extraction." Vela's patterns flickered rapidly. "There is one way to achieve this status. Through bonding." Tae-min's mind went blank for a moment. "Bonding? You mean marriage in human terms?" "Though Azurian bonding is significantly more complex." Vela looked down at her hands. "It is a permanent neural connection. Our minds would link, sharing thoughts and emotions to some degree. We would remain separate individuals, but we would always be aware of each other. Always connected. That's..." Tae-min struggled for words. "That's huge. That's not just a legal arrangement." "No, it is not. It would fundamentally change both of us." Vela's voice was quiet. "I would not ask this if there were any other option, but I have analyzed every alternative. This is the only path that allows legal crystal transfer while remaining within the boundaries of what the Council permits. How long would this connection last? Until death. Azurian bonding cannot be undone. If we do this, we are bound for life." Tae-min stood up and walked to the viewport, looking out at the same stars Vela had been watching. Somewhere out there, millions of humans lived their lives, unaware that their species was dying, unaware that their salvation depended on a choice he had to make. The bonding ceremony, he said slowly. What does it involve? Neural interface technology. It will take approximately 6 hours. The process is ... intense. Painful at times, but not dangerous. Vela joined him at the viewport. I will understand if you refuse. I am asking you to sacrifice your individual identity to save people who condemned you. People who treated you as a criminal when you were innocent. Those people include my brother, Admiral Sora. Probably thousands of good people who just believed the wrong information. Tae-min looked at Vela's reflection in the viewport. And it includes you now. Your human jurisdiction. If humanity dies, you die too. I am aware. They stood in silence for a long moment. Finally, Tae-min turned to face her directly. If we do this, if we bond, can we really get enough crystals to save humanity? Yes, my family's mining rights are extensive. Enough for full fleet retrofitting with surplus remaining. And the council can't stop it because it's a legal family transfer. Correct. They will be displeased, but they cannot prohibit it without violating their own laws regarding family sovereignty. Tae-min took a deep breath. Then I need to ask you something. This isn't just about the crystals for you, is it? You could propose this to anyone. Any human. Why me? Vela's patterns flared bright for just a moment. Because bonding requires compatibility. Because I have spent months working beside you, and I know your mind, your ethics, your determination. Because you are the only human I have met who I believe I could spend a lifetime connected to without losing myself. She paused. And because you deserve better than what your species gave you. This at least offers you purpose. How long do I have to decide? The council will transport me to Azuria in 48 hours. After that, the opportunity is lost. Tae-min looked out at the stars again. 48 hours to decide whether to bind himself permanently to an alien, to fundamentally change who he was, to save a species that had abandoned him. Somewhere in the detention center, an alert chimed. Visiting hours. Tae-min knew Yuna was scheduled to arrive soon. His ex-partner, who had finally sent a message apologizing, asking to see him, begging him not to make any decisions about leaving Earth's system. He had 48 hours. He wondered if that was enough time to decide how much humanity was worth saving, or if any amount of time would make that decision easier. That Yuna looked different than none. Tae-min remembered. Thinner, with shadows under her eyes that spoke of sleepless nights. She sat across from him in the detention center's visiting area, her hands wrapped around a cup of synthetic coffee she wasn't drinking. I'm sorry, she said for the third time. I should have believed you. I should have fought for you. I should have... It's done, Tae-min interrupted gently. You believed what everyone believed. The evidence looked real. I knew you. I worked with you for 6 years. I should have known better. Yuna finally looked up at him. I heard what you did. Transmitting the cascade data, exposing Dae-yoon. You saved everyone, and they still locked you up. I'm being released tomorrow. All charges cleared. And then what? Are you coming back to Earth? To the station? She reached across the table, stopping just short of touching his hand. Are you coming home? Home. The word felt strange. Tae-min thought about his old quarters on New Ganymede, the engineering bay where he'd spent so many hours, the colleagues who had turned their backs. Was that really home? I don't know yet, he said honestly. There's talk. People are saying the Azurian woman wants you to go with her to their homeworld, that it's some kind of political arrangement. Yuna's voice dropped. Tell me that's just rumors. Tae Min looked at her, at this woman he'd once cared about, who had abandoned him when things got hard. She was here now, apologizing, asking him to return. A month ago, he would have done anything to hear those words. "It's not a rumor," he said quietly. "Vela asked me to bond with her. Azurian bonding. It's permanent, and it's the only way to legally get the crystals humanity needs to survive the Cascades." Yuna's face went pale. "Bond with her? Tae Min, that's insane. You barely know her. She's an alien. You'd be giving up everything human about yourself. I'd be saving our species. There has to be another way. The Council can't just let humanity die. They'll change their minds. They won't." Tae Min pulled his hand back before she could touch it. "I've seen their records, Yuna. 16 species before us. All dead. The Council doesn't change its mind. They watch, they document. Can they let nature take its course? So you're just going to sacrifice yourself? Become some alien hybrid to save people who treated you like garbage?" Yuna's voice rose. "You don't owe us that. You don't owe us anything. I know." Tae Min stood up. "But Vela gave me everything when I had nothing. She risked her life for me, for all of us. Maybe I owe her something instead." He left before Yuna could respond, her protests following him down the corridor. The guards let him return to his cell without comment. He had 24 hours left to decide. That night, Tae Min couldn't sleep. He lay on his cell bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything that had happened. 6 months ago, he'd been a respected engineer with a good life. Then the prosperity exploded, and everything fell apart. Now he was being asked to literally change his brain to save a species that had condemned him. The reasonable choice was obvious. Refuse. Let humanity figure out its own solution. Return to Earth, rebuild his career, live his life. Yuna would be there. Wu Jin would understand. Nobody could blame him for refusing. But he kept thinking about Vela standing between him and Hyan Seek's stutter. About her fighting off armed attackers to keep him safe. About her quiet admission that she found him worth spending a lifetime connected to Dot when morning came. Tae Min knew his decision. He found Vela in the common area again, reading something on a data display. She looked up when he approached, her patterns flickering with what he'd learned to recognize as anxiety. "I'll do it," Tae Min said. "The bonding. I accept." Vela's patterns went completely still for 3 full seconds. Then they flared so bright he had to blink. "You are certain? You understand what you are agreeing to? Permanent neural connection. Shared thoughts and emotions. Fundamental change to who I am." Tae Min sat beside her. "Yeah, I understand. And I'm still saying yes." Vela asked softly. "You could refuse. You could return to your life." "What life? The one where everyone I knew abandoned me? The one where I spent 6 months as a social outcast?" Tae Min shook his head. "You showed me something different, Vila. You showed me what it means when someone actually believes in you. I'm not doing this just to save humanity. I'm doing it because you're worth it." Vela looked away, her patterns pulsing rapidly. Azurians do not typically experience emotional bonds. We are taught from childhood to value logic over feeling. But I find that when I consider returning to Azuria without you, the logic fails. The calculations become meaningless. She turned back to him. "I believe I have developed an attachment that my people would consider a weakness." "Good," Tae Min said. "Attachments make us stronger, not weaker. That's a very human perspective. Perhaps I am becoming more human than I realized." The bonding ceremony took place in a medical facility on the council station. Tae Min lay on a specialized chair while technicians attached neural interface devices to his head. Vela was in an identical chair beside him, already connected to her own interface. The technician. A crystalline being whose name Tae-min couldn't pronounce explained the process in a bored tone. The neural bridge will establish connection points between your minds. You will experience significant disorientation as your brain adapts to processing information from two sources simultaneously. Some memory bleed is normal. Physical sensations may cross over. The process cannot be interrupted once begun. How long? Tae-min asked. 6 hours minimum. Possibly longer for cross-species bonding. We have never bonded a human before. The technician activated the interface. Beginning connection sequence now. The world exploded into sensation. Tae-min felt his thoughts fragmenting, spreading, touching something that was not him. He sensed Vela's mind like a presence in a room he'd never noticed before. Her thoughts were structured differently than his, organized in patterns that seemed alien and beautiful and terrifying all at once. Pain lanced through his skull. He gasped and felt Vela's concern wash over him like a wave. Her worry for him, her fear that she'd asked too much. And underneath that, something deeper. Affection, care, emotions she'd probably never acknowledged even to herself. The connection deepened. Tae-min saw flashes of Vela's memories. Her childhood on Azuria, cold and structured and lonely. Her decision to study humans despite her people's disdain. Her growing fascination with human chaos and creativity. Her fear when she realized humanity was dying. Her feelings when she first saw him sitting alone in that cantina. Condemned and defiant and refusing to break Dot in return, Vela experienced his memories. The prosperity explosion. The accusations. The loneliness. The desperation. The moment he decided to accept her job offer, despite every warning screaming in his head. His gratitude when she defended him. His growing respect. His realization that this alien woman understood him better than any human ever had. The pain intensified, then slowly faded. The connection stabilized. Tae-min could still feel Vela's presence, but it was no longer overwhelming. It was just Dot there, a part of him now, as natural as breathing. He opened his eyes. Vela was looking at him, her patterns glowing steady and bright. Through the connection, he felt what she was feeling. Wonder, relief, joy. "It is done," she said aloud. But through the bond, he heard her other thought. "We are together now. Always." The journey to Azuria took 3 weeks by standard transport. Tae-min spent most of it learning to manage the neural connection, filtering Vela's thoughts from his own. It became easier with practice, though he suspected they'd always be aware of each other at some level. Azuria Prime was beautiful in an austere way. Cities of crystal and metal rising from plains of blue grass. Skies that shifted through colors humans had no names for. Everything was organized, efficient, logical. It also felt cold. Tae-min understood now why Vela had been drawn to human chaos. This world had no room for messy emotions or unpredictable creativity. The crystal transfer hearing took place in a government complex that seemed carved from a single massive gem. Vela's family representatives attended, including her mother, Overseer Kyler. The resemblance was striking, though Kyler's patterns showed nothing but disapproval. "You bring this human and claim bonding rights?" Kyler's voice was sharp. "You shame our family with this display." "I claim legal rights as guaranteed under Azurian family law," Vela responded calmly. "Tae-min is my bonded mate. He is entitled to family mining access. The law was never intended for this purpose. You are exploiting a technicality to aid a dying species. The Council has forbidden such assistance. The Council has forbidden direct resource transfer to humanity as a species. They have not forbidden family members from accessing their own mining rights." Vela's patterns flared. "Unless you believe our laws should change based on who we choose to bond with." The hearing chamber fell silent. Tae Min could feel Vela's tension through their connection, her fear that this gambit would fail. He reached out mentally, sending reassurance. She wasn't alone in this. Through their bond, Vela felt his support, and her patterns brightened slightly. Kyler studied them both for a long moment. You truly bonded with this human? Permanently? Yes, Mother. I chose him freely, and with full understanding of consequences. Why? Vela glanced at Tae Min, then back to her mother. Because he represents something I never found among our people. Adaptability in the face of impossible odds. Compassion despite personal suffering. The ability to choose hope over logic. She paused. Because I believe humanity deserves to survive, and he is the best humanity has to offer. Through their bond, Tae Min felt her truth. She meant every word. Kyler was quiet for a long time. Finally, she spoke. Very well. The bonding is legally recognized. Family mining rights are granted. However, she looked directly at Tae Min. You must prove to this council that humanity deserves such assistance. Convince me using our logic, not your emotions, that your species' survival benefits Azuria. Tae Min stood, his mind racing. Through the bond, he felt Vela's thoughts merging with his, her logical frameworks combining with his creative problem-solving. Together, they found the answer. The void cascades don't just threaten humanity, he said. They threaten the entire sector of space we share with you. Our simulations show that if human space fragments, the cascade effects will spread. Within 80 years, Azurian space will be impacted. Within 120, your civilization faces the same isolation and collapse. He pulled up data displays showing the cascade models. By saving humanity, you save yourselves. The harmonic dampeners will reduce cascade formation across the entire region. Your ships will benefit. Your colonies will be protected. This isn't charity. This is enlightened self-interest. The council members consulted quietly. Kyler studied the data with intense focus. Through the bond, Tae Min felt Vela's pride in him. He'd argued like an Azurian, using pure logic. But the logic came from human pattern recognition. She'd helped him enhance. They were stronger together than either could be alone. Your analysis is sound, Kyler finally said. The mining rights are approved. You may extract harmonic crystals under standard family allocation. This council finds the transfer legal and appropriate. 6 months later, Tae Min stood in the observation deck of the research station. He and Vela had established an orbit around New Ganymede. Through the viewports, he could see ships coming and going, each one now fitted with harmonic dampeners made from Azurian crystals. The cascade formation rate had dropped by 78%. Humanity was going to survive. Admiral So-Ra had led the implementation effort with typical military efficiency. Dae-Young was serving a life sentence for murder and negligence. Hyan-Sik had been dismissed from service and faced criminal charges. And Tae Min had something he'd never expected. A purpose. A partner. A future. The first mixed-species engineering class begins tomorrow, Vela said, joining him at the viewport. She carried 2 cups of tea, one human style for him, one Azurian style for herself. 40 students. 20 human, 20 Azurian. Think they'll get along? Eventually. After they stop arguing about optimal problem-solving methodologies. Through their bond, he felt her amusement. Though I suspect the arguments will be productive. Tae Min took his tea, smiling. Yuna applied to the program. She was accepted. I saw. Are you comfortable with that? Yeah. She made mistakes, but she's trying to fix them. That counts for something. He sipped the tea. Besides, I think she needs to see that change isn't the end of the world. Sometimes it's the beginning of something better. Vela's patterns pulsed with warmth. You have changed significantly since we first met. That angry, isolated human in the cantina seems very distant now. He was lost. You found him. We found each other, Vela corrected. She set down her tea and took his hand, her touch still strange and familiar all at once. The Galactic Council is reconsidering the Prime Observation Directive. Our success has challenged their assumptions. They are admitting, reluctantly, that intervention might be possible if executed properly. Because humanity proved unpredictable? Because we proved that understanding transcends biology. That cooperation creates outcomes neither species could achieve alone. Vela looked out at the ships, the station, the future they were building. 16 species died following predictable patterns. Humanity survived by being unpredictable. But you did not survive alone. Through their bond, Tae-min felt her satisfaction, her peace, her certainty that they'd made the right choice. And underneath all of that, something that took him a moment to recognize, because it was so thoroughly mixed with his own feelings. Love, rendered in a way that was neither human nor Azurian, but something new. Something better. No regrets? He asked, echoing her words from months ago. Regret is illogical, Vela said, smiling slightly. We saved 2 civilizations and proved that difference is a strength, not a weakness. Though I admit, your human habit of asking questions you already know the answer to remains endearing. Tae-min laughed. Through the bond, Vela experienced his joy and felt her own increase in response. Somewhere on the station, a human engineer and an Azurian technician were arguing about power distribution algorithms, then working together to find a solution neither could have achieved alone. The future wasn't what either species had expected, but it was better than what either could have built in isolation. Tae-min set down his tea and pulled Vela closer, feeling her surprise and pleasure through their connection. She was right about one thing. Being predictable was overrated. Being human meant embracing the unexpected, adapting to impossible situations, and finding strength in the most unlikely places, like in the mind of an alien woman who had helped him when no one else would, who had seen past his mistakes and found someone worth saving, who had asked for something impossible and given him the chance to become something more than he'd ever imagined. The stars beyond the viewport shone steady and bright. Somewhere out there,